Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while celebrating Diwali with sailors on board INS Vikrant, also spoke of this decisive phase in the war against Red Terror. He hailed the security forces for their courage. The Prime Minister said 125 districts at one point of time were under LWE or left-wing extremism. Now it's barely 10 or 11, and that too, the Home Minister has given a deadline of the 31st of March 2026. That's the time India would be Red Terror free. The Prime Minister spoke of this red corridor that was turning into zones now of green growth. Roads were coming up, schools were coming up, hospitals were coming up, and they were replacing this atmosphere of fear and violence. In fact, the Prime Minister also penned a letter to the country on Deepavali. He said, this Deepavali, it's particularly special. For the first time, lamps are being lit in many districts across the country, including in remote areas. These are the districts where Naxalism and Maoist terrorism have been eradicated from the root. In recent times, we have seen many individuals abandoning the path of violence and joining the mainstream of development, expressing faith in the constitution of the country. And this is a major achievement for the nation. Listen in to the Prime Minister.
मेरे पुलिस बेड़े के इन जवानों को लाख लाख बधाई देता हूं। मैं ऐसे जवानों को जानता हूं जिनके पास अब पैर नहीं है, लेकिन जज्बा वैसा ही है। किसी का हाथ कटा हुआ है, किसी के लिए व्हीलचेयर से उतरना मुश्किल हो गया है। मैं ऐसे अनेक परिवारों को जानता हूं जिन्होंने माओवाद नक्सलियों ने उनको शिकार बनाया, हाथ काट दिए, पैर काट दिए, गांव में जीना मुश्किल कर दिया। ऐसे अनगिनत लोगों ने जो सहा है, जो बलिदान दिया है, शांति के लिए, नागरिकों की जिंदगी बेहतर बनाने के लिए, बच्चों का भविष्य उज्जवल हो, स्कूल चले, इसके लिए उन्होंने अपने आप को न्यौछावर कर दिया है। दोस्तों, शायद आजादी के बाद पहली बार पुलिस बेड़े के सामने इतनी बड़ी चुनौती आई और पिछले 10 साल में 50 साल की इस भयंकर बीमारी को वो खत्म करके रहेंगे, ये मेरा विश्वास है। और 90% केस में वो सफल हो चुके हैं।
Dr. Vikram Singh, you've dealt with LWE at various levels. How would you describe India's achievements? Are we celebrating a bit too soon?
Let me tell you, this appeared to be extremely unrealistic at given point of time. There were 125 districts directly impacted by left-wing extremism. But now there are just about 11 districts and the residual part is just 3 districts. And it is a matter of tremendous satisfaction and pride that what the paramilitary forces and the police forces have done in a resolute nation has given a befitting reply to the left-wing extremism. And the success would be obviously the drive, concerted drive in the guidance, actionable intelligence collection, use of the futuristic technology, state-of-the-art equipment and firearms, and also concerted and unified chain of command towards a purpose. What was absolutely considered impossible in the Bastar forest now happened to be the stronghold of a paramilitary forces who have their outpost, and then the area domination is something that Gauravji would make any Indian proud. That today the Home Minister is saying that 31st March 2026 will be the end of Naxalism. This is something that is totally attainable, and I feel that it is a realistic expectation and anticipation, and a project that was seemingly impossible. You had the Jahanabad jailbreak, you had the Dantewada episode, you had the attack on
the Congress leadership,
on the former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh.
Yes.
Yes, and the entire Congress leadership was almost wiped out. That was the level of terror. You had that passing out parades in the Rohtas fort. That was the level of the depredations of the left-wing extremism. And they're saying, 6 inch chota kar denge, If anybody goes
True.
to change chota karne, meaning thereby, then they'll chop off the necks and then give slogans and also the warnings in the blood of the deceased. That was the terror that we have seen. That was the terror with the villagers lived. And 40%, I may tell you that in 2008, in front of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, Ajit Doval ji, who was the then director IB, said that India's
Yes.
40% of the land mass is actually clouded and shrouded by left-wing extremism. That was 2000. And today we have the satisfaction that it is almost finished and is about to be contained 100% by 31st March 2026, Gaurav ji.
And Sandeep, that's a huge achievement considering 75 CRPF personnel were massacred in one instance, and that was 2010-11. Another where the Congress Party's leadership in an entire state, virtually the entire leadership, was neutralized. And now that left-wing extremism is restricted just to a few pockets. But then urban Naxalism does remain a challenge.
Absolutely, Gaurav. You know, very few people seem to understand the enormity of what we faced almost 20 years back when the Prime Minister of the day, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, 20 years back said that they were the most serious threat to India's internal security. And, you know, unlike the other insurgencies, Gaurav, like in Punjab, in Jammu and Kashmir, Mizoram, Nagaland, those insurgencies were restricted to one single state. But the red insurgency that we saw was extended across a dozen states. It was like a massive red corridor that they were talking about, starting from Nepal right down to
Karnataka.
Tamil Nadu, going, you know, encompassing Andhra Pradesh, what is now Telangana, all of these states. It was a massive insurgency where, you know, these militants, they were massing in the thousands. You know, every other insurgency has seen dozens of militants attacking security forces. Here they were massing in companies and battalions. They were fighting like conventional outfits. 10,000, more than 10,000 soldiers is what the CPI Maoist fielded at one point. And from then, Gaurav, today, 20 years later, they're down to just a few hundred fighters. As Vikram Singh sir said, they've just come down to 2 or 3 districts. Their commander was killed in the field a couple of months back, Basavaraj. It's the first time that an insurgency has seen a commander being killed in the field. That's
and then Bhupati surrendering with weapons.
Absolutely. Venugopal surrendered with his weapons. Now it's a matter of time. So we are actually living through a very historic time, Gaurav, when we're seeing the single largest threat to India's internal security being crushed. But there are issues of, as you mentioned, urban Naxals. This is a very, very potent movement. It is an ideology, Gaurav. It's not just a movement. It's not about tribals in the forest. These are people with extensive connects, not just internally, but across the world. This is an ideology. This is the ideology of Maoism. This is the ideology of red terror. They plan to do in India what Mao Zedong did in China many decades ago.
And we'll be tracking that story very, very closely. So it is very close to victory, but it's still not victory yet. We'll be tracking this story because this is a story that needs to be told to future generations. I want to thank all my guests for joining me here on this part of India First.